the announcement or the potential announcement or the usual fare of whenever there's a big announcement, Tyson Fury pops up and says something different or garners some attention. So Tyson pops up last week with a video. Is it the return of the proverbial bad smell or the prodigal son? But the potential of Tyson Fury coming out of retirement.
Yeah, I think it was always going to happen. I think we always believed it was going to happen, and what timing that is to announce it when Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois gets announced. Tyson Fury was always going to make this announcement, wasn't he? I mean, we've said from day dot we don't think it's the last we see of him. I don't know what you think, Adam, but we see him in the ring again.
You're a long time retired, and although he's not a spring chicken, he's not an old man, and he has his health.
Yeah.
So when you look at British boxing, especially now, and these huge events and these atmospheres and the money, when you're walking away from it completely healthy, there's got to be a pull. And obviously after a long training camp and difficult fights, you walk away and think, well, I've had enough of that, that's all too hard. But you forget the pain, and then you start to look at the glory and everything that's involved in having a career in your prime. And you think, oh, okay, well, I still feel good and I still want to be.
Is it exciting to think of him coming back? Is it something that you find particularly appealing?
Depends who he fights.
Yeah.
For me, depends who he fights. I'm not actually interested in seeing him fight Usyk again. I think we've seen that fight play out enough. In a strange way, like we're going to get Bivol and Beterbiev again.
Yep.
And one will get the decision, but the fight is going to be exactly the same every round as the previous ones.
But that's a series of fights that's 1-1, so there is a real call to action.
I understand, but if you take away the decision and you look at the fight, you kind of know what the fight's going to look like. The same with Usyk and Tyson.
Yep.
But I think there's fights out there for Tyson where we don't know what the result's going to look like or how it's going to play out. And I think for me, that's going to be the interesting thing.
The lustre around the iconography of him being an undefeated fighter that was going to dominate the division and fight 10 fights and disappear into the ether has gone. So where do you think his motivation is coming from?
His motivation comes on now legacies and life without boxing, as Adam has just highlighted there, becomes very difficult, and you soon forget about the hard training and what it is, and you need that back in your life. Tyson Fury, has suffered with mental health problems outside of boxing. I think boxing gives him that straight and narrow, keeps him focused, keeps him on that direction, and I think there's still huge fights out there for him. We're talking about, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, massive fight out there. Tyson Fury versus Daniel Dubois, massive fights out there for him still. So that's where the motivation comes from. I think we're talking about eras, modern legacies, and Fury wanting to be recognised as one of the best names out there.
But isn't it slightly more simpler than that? Isn't it just an opportunity for the economic returns that maybe he might get from the Anthony Joshua fight?
No, I don't think it is. No, I think this is
so
all
he's
about...
going to do it for a charity then?
No, he's not going to do it for a charity. Obviously, he's going to get well rewarded for that. But we're talking about, you've got to remember that Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, people talking about this fight now being for money because there's no belts on the line, but,
the battle of the two losers, as I described it, mean-spiritedly.
I think that's unfair, because I think when you look at these two, look, on merit,
it's also factual.
No, but Simon, on merit, they both deserve that. They both deserve this fight on what they've achieved in the past. They're both two-time world heavyweight champions. It's still a huge fight. The British public, it goes outside of your hardcore boxing fan. It draws the casual fan in that dips their toe in and out of water every so often. They're still two of the biggest names in British boxing, and for me, I think for boxing, for themselves,
you might not like it, but when you've got Usyk and Dubois, who are the two winners fighting, it's natural to say if Fury fights Joshua, these are the two losers. It doesn't mean that they are losers full stop.
Am I right in saying that Usyk versus Dubois, Usyk Dubois, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, what's the biggest draw?
Well, let me go back a sec, because you've got grade and you've got entertainment.
Yep.
And the last couple of weekends have really shown us that. Ben and Eubank, not the best in their world, not the best in the world in their divisions, respectively.
Yep.
One of them not in his prime.
Yep.
One of them hasn't evolved into his prime.
Hallelujah.
Served up the biggest drama because one of them wasn't big enough to hurt and drop one, and the other one was the big fella whose legs weren't working, so just had to go inside and have a trade up. And we got served up some dramatic entertainment. We've been in boxing for years, but I was like a fan watching that play out, and the theatre with the dads. So there you didn't have the grade, but you had the pure entertainment. The next weekend, you had all the grade you could possibly want, and probably just as well that it was at 6 in the morning because it was easy to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so this plays into the answer to your question. They're two losers. Yes, okay, they're coming off the losses, but they are former world heavyweight champions.
Indeed they
are. The biggest names in world boxing, not just British boxing.
Yeah.
And if AJ and Fury were to get announced, I 100% would be interested in seeing how that fight plays out. They may not be in their prime, but I still think...
But it falls into the entertainment
narrative. And I do think the fight itself would give the entertainment.
Do you think that, that there's a reality behind this fight? Because I discussed it with Frank, I discussed it with Turki Al-Sheikh about the scale of this fight. Because once upon a time, this fight was, we were told that this fight had to generate 150 million quid for each fighter, right? Or something of that nature. And pay-per-view prices had to be at a certain level to be able to facilitate this fictitious fucking 150 million quid that each one of these fighters had to have. And I kind of bristled at it. But we're now at a stage where, how are you going to get that? I don't think the Saudis want to spend 150 million quid. The fight in and of itself goes to Wembley, right? Gets 90,000 people. Agreed. 90,000 people gives you 15 million quid out of gate receipts. You might get 1.2 million pay-per-views. And don't forget, we're talking about Ben Eubank, which is unprecedented success, getting 600,000 pay-per-views. So let's double that just for the purposes of this conversation. That's 30 million quid. Where's the other 100-odd million quid going to come in to be able to generate the revenue unless the Saudis pick it up and drag it to Riyadh? And I'm not entirely sure there's much of an appetite for that.
I think they pick it up and put it in Wembley Stadium. I think that Riyadh season would want to be. No, but I'm saying they want to be involved in it. Turki Al-Sheikh would want to be involved in that, and that's where the extra money comes from.
Let's agree with that, right? So you reckon they're going to pay somewhere? You're not going to get Fury and Joshua. You might get Joshua in there, but if Fury's just got paid 75 million quid for fighting Usyk and 30 million quid for fighting Ngannou, he's not getting in the ring with Joshua for 25 million quid, is he?
I think it generates more money than that anyway. I think it generates more money than that.
But why not?
From pay-per-view sales and whatnot. I still think it's a huge fight.
Numerically,
outside of
I just gave you the numbers.
But yeah, numerically, you're absolutely right. Numerically, you're right. There is, and basically, that's where the fight has to create its own value.
Yeah.
The problem with the disproportionate money that's been paid of recent times is that it's giving these people, everyone's hoarding on it. They're hoarding on it. But eventually that's going to settle down, then the reality kicks in. And the bottom line is that both of them aren't in their prime, but if they both want to do it, it's not going to be for the money. They both have enough money never to have to do anything again.
Agreed.
And their subsequent generations will never have to work. So, although they're going to get...
Although you can spend 100 million quid, I'm living proof of that.
Just don't buy a football club.
But the money isn't the reason. The money isn't the reason to make the fight. The reason to make the fight now is, over the years, they probably both overplayed their positions when talking about making that fight. There was always a bit of one-upmanship, that one had the advantage, then the other had the advantage at the negotiating table. But while that was going on, they were still making this phenomenal amount of money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, well now, that well has dried up a little bit, and we're left talking about, are they going to fight? Past their sell-by date, possibly, but still in an immense event that's going to generate significant money, certainly enough for them to be happy with, and go and have more experience, develop the legacy, and actually see, were you the better one or was he?
Well, it'll be fascinating. But listen, someone who spoke about it last week on the lineup, or this week on the lineup, I should say, is Tony Bellew. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about the Fury-Joshua fight.
Just a big part of me has to understand, and I need to see Tyson Fury back in the ring, because if Tyson Fury's back for just money, that will show up on the fight night.
We will look like John Fury.
That will show up on fight night. Whichever way you want to say, whether he's in shape or not, if he's back just for money, then it will show. If he's back for legacy, that's a different thing. That's a different animal you're dealing with.
I hear it.
That's a hungry fighter, and that's a dangerous fighter.
Insofar as the fight, if we are creating this outcome that we believe that's going to happen, right, based upon Fury popping his head above the parapet and delighting us all with his wonderful presence when it's about other people at the time, can you make a case for Joshua beating Fury? You can, because you're part of his bleeding.
Are you firing that question?
Yeah, I'll ask Adam. I might get a more balanced answer. Actually, sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can.
Yeah, you can make it. I can explain how either of them can win that fight.
Well, go ahead then.
Well, Tyson Fury is very good at not giving away opportunity. He can box very carefully, and with his freakishly long arms and short torso and height advantage, and the fact that he moves, he doesn't actually move with perfect balance, but he moves and he throws his fists out. And he's a nightmare and really difficult to try and get to when he's being in that, not safety first, but certainly boxing where he's hitting and he's giving you minimal opportunity to get in. AJ, on the other hand, when he stands there, gives you a lot of opportunity to land on him. But I think what AJ needs to be is a combination of aggressive and clever with that aggression. You can't go on the line. He's got to use his legs and his head movement
the right time.
to get at him explosively and take advantage. If you try and get in and then punch, Tyson's going to tie you up. If you stand on the outside and wait for the opportunity, you're just going to get your head flicked off all night long and pinged. What he has to do, what AJ has to do, is be aggressive with his legs and his head movement and punch as he goes in to eventually end up spinning the coin with Tyson. That's your chance with Tyson of catching him when he's looking to catch you. Before he goes or after he goes, he'll tie you up and mess you around. But with Tyson, you know, if he settles AJ down, if AJ does get aggressive and he uses his ring IQ and his experience and his movement and all these little moments where you choose things to settle him down and just pick his spots to take advantage of it, you could see how he could win. And I actually don't think the fight, either way, I don't think the fight goes the distance.
Do we, to close this section off, do we see Tyson Fury winning another world title?
I think it's definitely possible, yeah, of course. You know, with the landscape of heavyweight boxing and with what's going on, you don't know what's going to happen with Rolex. Like, they're all in that twilight of their career now where you don't know how long they're going to continue, and it depends on how Tyson Fury comes back, how he looks coming back, and the opportunity that arises.
How long ago did he lose a very close decision to Usyk? How long ago was that?
4 months?
Yeah.
4 months.
Yeah, I'm even
4
getting
months.
caught up in talking about the fact that Tyson Fury is now yesterday's news. The only reason why we're talking about him being yesterday's news is that he announced his retirement.
He keeps on fanning about.
If he hadn't announced his retirement, we wouldn't be phrasing it like this. He lost a very close decision to the best in the world 4 months ago. So absolutely, he could win a world title again.
Okay, well, fascinating. We'll wait and see.